I have railed against the powers that be at Disney for quite some time on this channel and tried to make coherent points as an investor, and largely, really as someone who has grown up in the American culture, someone who is culturally invested in the paradigm of Disney to some extent. I don't think, and mainly Marvel. Marvel was my childhood. And I'm not making one of these XYZ ruin my childhood arguments at all. That's not where I'm coming from. Where I'm coming from is I want Marvel to remain a thing. When I was a kid, it almost disappeared. The comic book boom and bust cycle was really busting. And Marvel had to sell off basically everything they own, and the movie rights to everything they own, and the toy rights to most of the stuff they owned. And it was a big deal. They almost went under as a company, and all of that IP would have gone who knows where, perhaps nowhere. I don't want to see that happen. But I think we're getting dangerously close to something like that happening. There are rumors that Disney is gearing up to sell Star Wars. And I'm not real big into the Star Wars world. I don't know one way or another. There's a very large possibility that that would go just as drastically wrong as has Disney Star Wars. But at least it would be an IP. I don't know how marketable Marvel is outside of a massive cinematic effort like they're able to support at Disney. And we have, in this long, protracted argument about Disney, nothing short of our latest talking point, and that, of course, is the epic disaster that is Captain America 4. In an article titled Captain America Brave New World won the box office again, but is still trying to break out of the bottom of MCU's record books from Cinema Blend by Eric Eisenberg, we get the following. And I'm going to follow this up with some talking points on why this matters. Things are not going exceptionally well for Julius Ona's Captain America Brave New World. It was not until this moment, when I read this article, that I realized I'm only assuming that's the director. I have no idea who Julius Ona is. I'm assuming it's the director, but that's probably a problem in and of itself. While the latest film from the Marvel Cinematic Universe has maintained the top spot at the domestic box office for 3 weeks in a row, the numbers driving his performance are not exactly what anyone would call elite. In fact, the blockbuster is still trying to break out of the proverbial basement where the history of the franchise is concerned, as it appears as though it's destined to end up as one of the MCU's lowest grossing titles. Now, if you've been following this story, the reason that might be so incredibly stunning is it might have one of the largest budgets of the entire MCU, rumored to be $400 million plus at this point, though they are listing it, I believe, at $200 million of budget. That is clearly not true. Captain America 4 did battle with Alex Parkinson's based on a true story drama Last Breath as the prime new release, and you can check out the early numbers in the domestic top 10 below, blah, 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 blah. After you peruse the chart, join me for analysis. Captain America Brave New World remains in the bottom 3 of the MCU worldwide. In the days prior to its arrival, Captain America Brave New World didn't exactly light anyone's hair on fire, earning mostly tepid reactions from critics. And since then, things have not been going particularly well for the blockbuster beyond its ability to stay on top of the chart, which, frankly, says more about its competition than anything else. I have a question. What was the last... Okay, so Barbenheimer, obviously, was a very big box office weekend. Barbie versus Oppenheimer. Guys, there used to be 4 of those a summer. There used to be one of those in September. There used to be one in October. There used to be Thanksgiving and Christmas releases. The movie industry is destroyed right now. I have no idea what's going on with releases in Hollywood. I have no idea. I used to be in the cloth with that stuff. I used to love it. Thought it was so interesting following the box office numbers for these movies. I just don't think it's part of the culture anymore. I think that largely Hollywood is defunct, and I don't know what it would be to bring it back. I don't know what restores Hollywood in the American consciousness. First, it became one of the rare MCU films to debut with only a 7-figure gross in the United States and Canada, making only $88.8 million in its first 3 days, and then it followed that performance with a painful 68% weekend-to-weekend drop. Things haven't been going well for Captain America 4, and the ticket sales from its latest Friday to Sunday aren't helping its reputation. According to the numbers, the film starring Anthony Mackie, Harrison Ford, and Giancarlo Esposito made just $15 million during Oscar weekend. That brings its domestic total to date up to $163.7 million. That is likely to be the bulk of it undoubtedly is the bulk of what the movie will make. That would be a great performance for a mid-budget original release, but we're talking about one of the biggest movie franchises of all time here, and one that cost $180 million to make, according to The Hollywood Reporter. Clearly, it did not cost 180. So far, the film has, 180. Marvel Phase 2 movies were in the 180 range, I believe. Marvel Phase 2, you're looking at 2011, 2012. Or no, so Avengers was 2012. So 2013, 2014, you're looking at movies in that range? No. Oh no. There's no way that this movie cost $180 million. So far, the movie has made just $341.8 million worldwide, which is more than only 2 other features in the canon. Nia DaCosta's The Marvels, $199.7, and Louis Leterrier's The Incredible Hulk, $265.6 million. As fans know, those are titles that any production wants to be. Those are titles that any production wants to be associated with in a conversation. Those aren't titles any production wants to be associated with in conversations about box office within the legacy of the MCU. In order to not be ranked in the bottom 3 at the worldwide box office for the franchise, the film needs to add $29 million more, which will allow it to outgross Joe Johnston's Captain America the First Avenger from 2011, without accounting for inflation. Very big point there. We have not had minimal inflation in the last 14 years. How wild is that to think about? You're competing with a Marvel movie that was released 14 years ago. That's a high school freshman. High school freshmen this year were not born when that movie came out, and you're trying to compete with its numbers? That's A. B. Captain America the First Avenger is largely considered something of a what would you call it? Something of a hidden gem in the MCU. It is a movie that has aged better than it performed at the time. It is a movie that is more enjoyable to watch in the wake of everything that the MCU became. It is more of a simple story. Tommy Lee Jones was really good in it. Chris Evans did a very good job. There are bit actors in that movie that have gone on to have larger careers that people find interesting to see them. You don't want to be competing with a movie from 14 years ago. Above that is Kate Shortland's Black Widow, which made $379.8 million during its theatrical run. But let's not forget that it was released day and date on streaming. Black Widow is kicking Captain America 4's butt. Will it succeed? It's not guaranteed. Compared to this time last year, blockbuster competition is minimal. March of 2024 included the releases of Denis Villeneuve's Dune Part 2, Mike Mitchell's Kung Fu Panda 4, Adam Wingard's Godzilla x Kong: The New Empire, and Gil Keenan's Ghostbusters: Frozen Empire. But the film is at a point now where its performance is less about what else is playing on the big screen and more about remaining general interest. Was there ever general interest? Anyone who had a real passion to see Captain America: Brave New World prior to release has already seen it at this point, and the word of mouth is not motivating people to check it out while it's in theaters. So I have a few talking points here that I want to get to. The first one is this, and it's just sort of a short-sighted talking point about this movie. We're no longer talking about profitability. According to Valiant Renegade and WDW Pro, among others, the budget on this movie was probably north of $400 million, and therefore, because of the split that theaters take and because of the split that other countries take, it is likely that Captain America 4 Brave New World has to cross the $1 billion mark in order to turn a profit. $1 billion it would have to cross in order to make money, meaning anything short of $1 billion is how many millions of dollars Marvel lost putting out a product. That has to be tough to swallow. Number two, this is a failure. There's no other way to look at this. There are movies that might not turn a profit, but you create a cultural impact. Fight Club, for example, did not make a profit at the theaters. It was a box office bomb. But it made a lot of money in secondary. People loved the movie, bought the DVD, rented the DVD, so Blockbuster, yes, those were things, had to have it in stock, etc., etc., etc. The movie ended up being licensed on television time and time again. It's not going to be there for this movie. This movie is going to the theaters and it's done. There's no secondary market as far as DVDs, cassettes, anything like that is concerned anymore. It's all on streaming. And here's one argument I have to make. This sort of sphere of influence on YouTube talking about Marvel and Star Wars and the theaters and things like that, there seems to be a common refrain that streaming, Disney Plus, for example, is the wrong move. Should never have done it. It was a mistake. I wholeheartedly disagree. It should be working. It should be a no-brainer for every American to want to have Disney Plus. But they've screwed everything up. If it were a no-brainer that everyone wanted to have Disney Plus and fork over however many dollars a month just to have access to the entire archive of Disney, which it should be but is not, if you had that value proposition laid down, there's no reason that Disney Plus couldn't be as big or nearly as big as its own entity as Netflix. Disney Plus should be as big as Netflix. When you think about the rich history of Disney, when you think about all the crazy stuff that Disney has done, the Miramax films, etc., the Marvel Cinematic Universe, The Simpsons, Star Wars, all of these things, Disney Plus for the common American should be an absolute no-brainer. But they can't even do a catalog correctly. The value of the Disney archives itself. You don't have to create new content. You wouldn't have to if you didn't want to. Everything that's ever been on ABC, everything that's ever been on the Disney Channel, it should be a repository for all of those things. All of the Miramax films, all of the Fox films, all of the Disney animated films, all of the Princess films, all of the Marvel films. They should be, as opposed to spending however crazy many millions of dollars on terrible Star Wars products and terrible Marvel products. What they should be doing is sniping IPs from across the universe that they think would fill a hole in the product that they offer. Now, you could still make original Star Wars stuff, original Marvel stuff. You just have to vet it, and you'd have to put it on a budget. And the more holes that you fill with IP that's already out there, the better your streaming service would be, and it would be something else. For example, I have no idea where this lies, but say Disney sniped G.I. Joe. Boom, you've got G.I. Joe. Now Netflix can't have G.I. Joe. You snipe, God forbid, He-Man. Netflix doesn't have He-Man, right? Any of these IPs that are small but big enough, something that would have enough of a cultural impact to have the member berries aspect to it, the nostalgia aspect to it, you could just roll that into what it is that you offer. There is, I guarantee you, a massive discount on that stuff right now because all of the influx of new stuff that these companies think people want, but they do not. It could be that way. Disney Plus should be as big as Netflix. It should be. I don't care what anyone says or what they try to argue. That is the truth. It should be that big. It's not. Because they've screwed up everything. This, Captain America 4, is a failure, and it's a massive failure. No one, not even Kevin Feige, who architected the greatest cinematic phenomenon in history as far as chapters and size are concerned, no one can survive this unscathed. Not after the succession of absolute failures that Kevin Feige has had. Now, Marvel's last success was Deadpool and Wolverine at $1.3 billion on a $200 million budget. I believe that budget because it wasn't, strictly speaking, a quote-unquote Disney Kevin Feige budget. Neither was it a quote-unquote Feige film. Neither was it a Feige film. Before that, you probably have to go all the way to Black Panther, Wakanda Forever. I believe that was 2022. We're in 2025. The last success was 2022. Before that, so that Wakanda Forever, so another reason we have to say maybe, yes, Wakanda Forever made roughly $860 million on a supposed $250 million budget. So maybe 500 or $550 million reached profitability. Maybe they got about $300 million out of that. I don't know if you remember this, but the budget on that movie was rumored to be much larger as well. B, I'll tell you, as someone who works retail, that movie was not only panned by fans, it was an absolute disaster with merchandise. There are retailers that still have the basically Barbie dolls that were sold alongside that movie. I'll never understand why Marvel has all of a sudden started making action figures for boys that have 4 points of articulation, or 2 points of they're making, and I know this because I'm someone who works retail, they're making toys for boys that the only joints they have are forward, backward shoulder joints. That's not what boys do. Boys aren't playing with them like dolls. Boys are making these things fight. They're whatever it is, right? There's a reason Barbie dolls sell to girls and action figures sell to boys. There's a reason they're called action figures. Having 2 points of articulation, you can't even turn the head. Doesn't work. There's a reason places tried to clearance out Black Panther Wakanda Forever toys and couldn't get rid of them at clearance prices. You can go to your local Five and Dime, to your local drugstore, and probably still see Black Panther Wakanda Forever merchandise. Before that, before Black Panther Wakanda Forever, it was Spider-Man No Way Home in 2021. Now, that might not sound like ancient history, and indeed it is not, but you're not talking about history. You're talking about culture. The tides of culture are many. Think of it this way. If you were a freshman in high school watching Spider-Man No Way Home, caught up in the Marvel Cinematic Universe experience, the prior year you had seen Avengers Endgame, 2 years prior you had seen Avengers Endgame, so you would have been in the 7th grade. That's like peak comic book movie territory for a kid. That's what inculcates you. That's what gets you into, that's what lathers you up. That's what riles you up into the culture of quote unquote comic book movies. That age range getting that type of movie cinematic experience. Then you were a freshman for Spider-Man No Way Home. There have been no good Marvel movies in the meantime. You were in college. You went from freshman year being like, oh yeah, man, Marvel's my stuff, to your freshman year of college, and there have been no good Marvel movies in the meantime. I'm not counting Deadpool and Wolverine. Just not doing it. Not for this Marvel Cinematic Universe. It didn't fit in anywhere. It was not tied to it at all. You can't count it. But boy, have there been a lot of failures along that route. And when you're that age, freshman in high school to freshman in college, that feels like forever. And there have been zero successes along the way. That is all I have for this video. If you like or appreciate what it is that I do here, hitting a like button really does help me out, as it tells YouTube to share this video with other people. If you find yourself here by chance but not design, this is the type of thing that I do on this channel. And as always, I hope to have you back for the next one.